Smooth Breakfast with Khadijah
And Valentine, good morning.
and of course right now it is time for Freshly Pressed on Smooth. Of course, today we have our analyst in the studio, Devo Curry is with us this morning. Good morning, Devo.
Good morning, Lagos.
All right, and we also have Bola Mr. G Quest with
Good
us today.
morning, Khadijah. Good morning, Valentine, and
Good
good
morning.
morning, Lagos.
Cool NDDC money.
All right, so we're going straight to our stories this morning.
But before that, a reminder of how you can reach us on WhatsApp 0809 444 0981. We're streaming live on YouTube. You can also tweet with the hashtag FreshlyPress981 on Twitter at Smooth981FM.
All right, so going to our first story for today. This one is, by the EFCC, $1 million scam. EFCC arrests Kirikiri prison controller doctor for procuring medical report. Now, the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission has arrested the deputy controller of Kirikiri Maximum Correctional Center, Emmanuel Oluwani, and Hemison Edwin, also a DC, for allegedly procuring an exaggerated medical report for a suspected cyber scammer, Olusegun Aroke, who is serving a 24-year jail term. And apparently, he was allegedly given a referral for treatment outside the facility, during which he pulled the $1 million scam. Now, Balang, I'm going to shoot this one straight at you. Here we are in 2019, and now
Mhm,
we are arresting officials, government
mhm,
officials, for partnering with criminals.
mhm.
What's your take on this?
Well, I mean, this is just an indication of the corruption that we have and the rot that we have in our institutions. It's not the first time that such would be reported. I mean, just a few weeks ago, it was reported that there was a lot of scandals going on in our prison facilities. An investigation that was done by one of the Premium Times reporter then, and it revealed there were quite a lot of damning revelations from that, and which showed the level of institutional corruption that we have in our prison or correction facilities. And so this is just one of that, highlighting one of those issues. And of course, we know that many a times we have different sets of prisoners in our correction facilities. We have the VIPs and we have the
Mm,
regular people. And the VIPs normally tend to corroborate or work in partnership with the people that are meant to be the correction officers in the prison cells. And they have access to numerous VIP facilities, uh, such as internet access, mobile phones, you name it, all sorts of things that they're meant to be deprived of while serving jail term. So this is just one of those stories. It talks about this Olusegun Aroke, who was convicted in 2012
mhm.
for cybercrime activities, and he's been convicted for 24 years in prison. But whilst in prison, he's been able to work with the prison officers in jail, and for some reason he's been able to get medical certificates which actually gave him the permission to seek medical treatment outside the prison
Facility.
confinement or
Yeah.
the facilities. And in the process of this, he's been able to commit or perpetrate great cyber crimes to the tune of $1 million. It raises a lot of questions.
What could
I
be the
mean,
consequences on the guards that enabled his actions?
of
Because it was reported that he attended parties, he was throwing parties himself outside the prison, where he was moving around like a normal human being. For somebody to have the access, to computers and technology to carry this kind of fraud to the tune of $1 million, it means that for several days, for several weeks, he had access to the outside world.
well,
So, what will be the consequences on the officials that enabled
when
such
you're
fraud?
talking about consequences, the reason why you a lot of people or a lot of all these offenses are perpetrated is because there's simply no consequences for their actions. A lot of people hold on, Valentine.
No, no,
Oh wait,
I'll,
well, hold on, Valentine, because
go
I
on.
know you're always very quick to take defense. But I mean, in saner crimes, if there were consequences for their actions, you would see this. And this is why the EFCC has said this. This is not the first time that they've mentioned that you have medical doctors who falsify medical certificates and they're now going after them. hoping that we start to see consequences of such actions. Now we're hoping that we see oversight functions and we see a lot of people that are perpetrating such offenses are brought to book. Once they are being brought to book and a lot of them start to see the consequences and law clamping down on this, then of course people will start to nip this in the bud. But we have a lot of this that is going on, and the government needs to investigate this further. We need to have oversight functions from the Senate to who are usually responsible for oversight functions of the executives to ensure that all of these nefarious activities are nipped in the bud.
All right, talking about nipping things in the bud, the Zamfara Assembly nullifies law authorizing pension for ex-governors. Now, the Zamfara House of Assembly on Tuesday abolished the law that allowed the payment of pension and other allowances for states' former governors and their deputies. And this was made known by the spokesperson of the State's Assembly, Mustafa Jafaru. And this development is coming days after a former governor, Abdulaziz Yari, in a linked letter to the state government, requested his 10 million monthly upkeep, which he said some months. Now, Devo, I'm coming to you with this story. This one sounds good to a lot of Nigerians out there because everybody talks about how, they need to reduce the costs
of governance.
Yeah, of governance, really. But now, another concern may be, at the end of the day, these are people who are serving the nation, whether we like it or not. So is it right to just totally cut them off?
Cut who off?
The governors, their pension.
Well, they didn't cut off the governor's pension. It's a case of what we call jungle politics or kangaroo politics, which has become the norm in Nigeria these days, where the more you see, the less you understand. There's a history to this. The ex-governor, that's Yari, did send a notice to the state government, reminding them of outstanding pension and allowances that were due to him to the tune of 10 million naira monthly plus in some cases. And then not just for him and the deputy speaker, This was passed in his administration, all right? Just like some states, even here in Lagos, did pass some level of emoluments for some senior execs in government. Now, the state government did reject this and moved quickly within the space of just 2 days to pass it 3 readings to ensure that the law was repealed. And this was done under the leadership of the House Leader Farouk Dusara. He was PDP. Now, what people need to understand here is that there's a political fighting going on between APC and PDP. Remember, the last governor was from APC, and his administration lost out on the election due to infighting within the APC at that point, whereby INEC omitted or removed the names of the APC candidates, both gubernatorial and legislative, from the ballot box simply on the fact that they couldn't come up with a legit primaries, So PDP gained from that infighting that was taking place in APC, and eventually they won the seats. So right now, what you're seeing is a reversal of many of the things that were done. Now, my issue is this: yes, on the surface, it looks good that they've been able to save the state government money, but at the end of the day, was this just done because they were being, they were working in the interest of the people, or because they were teaching the past administration lessons? Because recently they've been having a lot of rancor, even where the present governor has been warning the past governor to be careful on entering the state, that each time he enters the state, there's security issues. And you do remember how Zamfara became a hub of crime within the last administration. So they've been trying to deal with a lot of that and trying to bring it down.
So pretty much playing politics.
Yes.
Yeah, well, let me ask a question that I asked earlier today. Because the story was, came up during business. It's kind of similar to what you just alluded to now. Is it a temporary measure? Do you see this law being repealed? Because what it did, the action is not just affecting the past governor. If put into law,
the present governor, yes, will have to live with the same consequences. It's not even consequences.
The present lawmakers as well will be affected by that.
They were. Let me justify it, and this was what the speaker said: that about 700 million naira goes to these top senior executives on an annual basis, and their present economy cannot carry it. We know this.
So my question is this going to extend beyond this administration?
Of course. Now they said that henceforth they will only earn what the Revenue Mobilization Committee has to pay for them, which is what practically all of them should understand. And what's important here is that in as much as this legislative state assembly has done this, people should ensure that they wake up their state legislators. It shouldn't be on the basis of politics.
Yeah.
They should be working in our interest as the people, as residents of state government. Lagos has that issue too, and it needs to be repealed. Many state governments are struggling with even the 30,000 or the consequential adjustments or even projects that the state should go into. It shouldn't be these few people who really we have not seen the commensurate, delivery to the state government. Then they're carting away 700 million on a daily basis, all in the name of pension.
All right, we're going to go into some of the comments we have. All right, and we have this one by Yinka who says, wow, you ought to complete your conclusion. It's obvious that the guy is not in Kirikiri. When a prisoner hits $1 million, let's see, there we go. It's right here. When the prisoner hits $1 million, where was he intending to spend it? There in the prison? No, I believe he's serving his 24 years in proxy. This goes deeper, and should the federal government to follow through, a lot of heads will roll.
So in answer to that, Yinka, which is the fact that what is clear from this story is the fact that about the first time in the history of Nigeria in a long time where we've seen such expose or such corrupt officials being exposed on the higher level, and it's deeper than we know. I mean, the fact that we don't hear about it is because it's been going on the ground for a long time. So the fact that it's coming up right now, it's a plus for the government. It's a plus for on the fight against to curb corruption. Because what's very evident is the fact that this guy appears to be in prison. He's facing a 25-year sentence, but he's actually not living in prison.
Well, we just hope that there will be corrections made.
My point.
All right. So Yinka also says, I hope and pray other states will have the balls to emulate the Zafra State House of Assembly, even though we know it's pure politics of enemy of my enemy is my friend. Also, be a law barring outgoing governors from engaging, for example, 34 permanent secretaries, 3 months to the end of their tenure. What rubbish that was, according to Yinka.
And then Shalas, I'm so miffed by the story of the fraudster prisoner who got help from the system. My wife's business was run to the ground by one of such, who I recently found out is in Kuje prison. I'll be glad if advised on how to proceed with the case against both the fraudster and government officials. Shola from Tulare, you can visit the EFCC offices to, file your report. I know they have an office on Awolowo Road in Ikoyi, so you can go there and file this report so they can follow through.
All right, so quickly going on to our next story, Devo, I'm still with you on this one. Air Force to buy uniforms for personnel from Cross River Garment Factory. Now, the efforts of Governor Ben Ade of Cross River to create an alternative economy for his state received a huge boost on Tuesday when the Nigerian Air Force announced it was partnering the state government for the production of uniforms for its at this state garment factory. What do you have to say about this?
Excellent. And let's break this down from a business perspective, right? The Air Force Chief Air Marshal Sadiq Abubakar did visit the states on the auspices of the state governor to inspect and look at the garment factory, which the state governor was proposing that the Air Force utilize, okay? And this was hereby providing services for their uniforms and their garments. Now, the Air Marshal did explain that currently they had recruited about 10,000 recruits, okay, officers, and when they assume a service, each of them would require uniforms as the camouflage, the normal uniform, etc., which would eventually become 100,000 pairs of uniforms. So that's your demand right there. Ideally, they bring these things in from outside, okay?
Yes.
Now, in this instance, the Cross River State government has empowered this industry, okay, and said that we can do this locally. And the Air Force has given them a positive indicator that they would patronize them. Now, the state governor had to now back it up by not only the inspection, by saying that they would not reduce the quality, because most times the fear is once you
I was going to get to the quality.
yes, patronize local industries, that you might be reducing the quality of what you were used to. So he said they would not, that their workers are being sent on training, they have the best of equipment, of even the Air Marshal was surprised about and said that he likes what he sees. He also did add that they want this to grow, okay, across time, so that this would form some level of IGR revenue generation for the state government. Now, this is a great story. However, what the lesson here is that governors, states need to wake up to look beyond the statutory allocation, which is a laziness in governance, whereby every how do you call it, end of month, they all line up, the chief financial officers or the ministers of finance line up to collect checks. And now they're struggling to pay back their debts on projects, pay back their debts on the consequential adjustments. Now, you have a case where these partnerships, government to government, like Lekki and Kebbi, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
Lagos and Kebbi, whereby Lagos had the demand for rice,
Rice, yeah.
Kebbi grew the rice, and all we simply did was an exchange. We need to see more state governments wake up and start thinking in this, like every state should have a primary project that brings some form of resource or economic gain to the state for their own benefits.
And I keep saying this: the moment we start to make political offices less attractive,
Yes.
and start thinking of the way we run our states and liken it to the way we should run companies,
Business.
with the accountability and everything in check, we will all work perfectly together. Imagine Nigeria as a country is regarded as a group of companies, and you have the states or the subs as subsets of the company. You find that we can share resources among ourselves and see how one can produce and supply to the other, and vice versa.
The truth is, if you look at the material and risk profile of every state, that's the 36 states, no state in Nigeria has any business being poor or even struggling.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
So hopefully a lot of all the other states take some cues from this one and tap into what they have right now. So going to our next story, Boko Haram, allegation against Turkey, serious security issues, says DHQ, that is the defense headquarters in Abuja, who on Tuesday described as a serious issue an allegation that Turkey was supporting the Boko Haram insurgents. Now, the acting director, Defense Information, Brigadier General Onyema Onwachukwu, stated this in a WhatsApp message, and of course, there was a report on Tuesday that the CBN news channel recently reported that Turkey was a major supplier of arms to Boko Haram. Now, Bola, I'm coming to you with this one. Of course, this is a huge concern. What do we expect in this regard? Are we going to hear something from Turkey?
Well, I mean, just as you've reported, it's a report that was released on Tuesday, and the defense, that's the acting director of Defense Information at the DHQ has, who is Brigadier General Onyema Nwachukwu, has come out to say that for now, the fact that this news reporting channel has reported that Turkey is supporting Boko Haram by supplying arms to Boko Haram isn't verified yet. And as soon as it's verified, a statement will be released. And I do expect that, of course, Turkey would also be doing further investigation to verify the authenticity of such reporting now. So for now, this is unverified news as at present. But of course, spokesperson did also say that the government, the border closure and other strategic moves were part of the effort put in place to ensure that arms that are being smuggled into the country are curtailed and reduced, and to avoid such arms coming into the country and they're being used by Boko Haram. So for now, the information is unverified. We're just waiting to see what the outcome of the investigation will be. And just as he's mentioned too, this is just as Valentine has mentioned in the past too. These are probably one of the reasons why the borders had to be closed. Security measures. So we are hoping that at the end of the day that there will be a full investigation carried out, and Nigerians will be told the outcome of that investigation.
All right. Ace from our Gold Center WhatsApp, police should be in forefront of the shopping for arms from local industries. Or are the police leadership proud of what their men were? Good job to Cross River. As well of their state here, and this one is from MJ. Co-production is awesome if contracts are respected and honored. I fear once the big wigs want part of the proceeds, then we go back to square one, but good progress. And shall I send the
All right, imagine if all parastatals buy from that state. Most of them won't be flocking to Lagos causing traffic.
I doubt the ones that cause the traffic. Please add your names to your messages so we can take them. Special thanks to you. Ikemesit. Oh, wow, where have you been? At least freshly pressed family, we don't miss you, Ikemesit. We actually do, trust me. It says, so that garments factory in Cross River finally has a comma. We've been just above dormant for 2 years and change. Thank God, though. Thank you very much, Kevin from the streets. Please stay safe out there. Our next story is from the Guardian newspaper. Reports that Senate suspends NDDC budgets, demands board's inaugurations. Apparently, a board is meant to be inaugurated. It's been approved on the floor of the House as presented by the president. Although before now we had an interim management committee that was instituted or put together by the minister to carry out oversight functions in place of the board. But the Senate is arguing that since the board has been constituted and approved, there's no reason why they should come forward to defend the budget. Your thoughts on this, Devo?
Yes, the Senate isn't even arguing. The Senate is stating the law, and I'm very happy that they have upheld what we call precedence here. Now, what has happened is that, yes, we're aware that the new minister, that's Akpabio, did institute an interim management, which has been contested, that the law doesn't provide, or the act establishes the NDC does not provide for an interim management, that if one goes out, then another one needs to be inaugurated. So that's what the Senate. And at the same time, the president did pass to them the budget for the NDDC, of which they said, well, they're not going to have illegal or people who are not having the backing of the law to come and defend it. So therefore, they had confirmed the appointment of 15 nominees to the board about 3 weeks ago, of which the Senate President Lawan did say that therefore the current IMC has been vitiated, which is basically it's been weakened because now that they have a confirmed board, they can go ahead, and that they should resume their appointments immediately so that they can begin to do their jobs. Now, this is good so that go on in earnest. Now, in other parts of the article, the minister Akpabio was defending the forensic audit that has taken place to reporters, saying that all was ongoing and that they were looking at the various aspects of it, that they were uncovering hospitals that were built that were not completed, the head office also that had started but was not completed. Yes, the remittances from the IOCs that had not been done in full, the road constructions that could not last past 5 years. He was given reasons that the audit was not just to unearth fraud, but more or less to find reasons for why they were not able to complete. But I dare say that the minister should cease from his declarations. That's why it's called the forensic audit. It's not for him to comment on. It's for him to allow the independent auditors to finish their job and then release their findings. We don't want it politicized up front. He has no business actually even commenting on it until that report is out. He should wait so that we will know that full probity was done, and at the end of the day, they have a job to do to recover funds as well as complete the projects at the end of the day.
But if he doesn't speak, you guys will say he's not working. So I guess he was asked questions, so he answered and gave details.
Well, he should know how. When it comes to policies, they know how to bridle their tongue, right?
YouTube has Paul Livingston sending a message. He said, "I'm so shocked to hear that a criminal that is put away in prison is found outside and perpetrating evil. In fact, I'm short of words." The Paul Smith sent in another one.
Yeah, he says the Cross River State Garment Company is like the Open Emo educational tablets state during Arabishala's time in office.
And yes, another message from Harmony. Harmony says, "Wow." So they collect as former governor, I guess, reacting to the state story. Collect as assembly member, collect as a senator, collect as Harper. Only one person collecting numerous salaries. Meanwhile, only 30K minimum wage cannot be afforded. They should also be paid via the IPPIS. That's the Integrated Payroll and Personal Information System. Harmony from Satellite Town. Thank you very much for your message. Let's move on to this next story. Let's look at the Guardian newspaper's report. 253.6 billion naira capital flights upset stock market stakeholders. Your thoughts on this, Bola?
Well, I mean, this is referring to the stakeholders and those that are investing in the capital market. I mean, what this is just simply saying is just a mere function of the economy generally. As often said, the capital market reflects the barometer to how the economy is performing. And what this report is saying is that 253.6 billion naira lost in the capital market over 4 years now, since 2015, it says.
Why?
And the reason why it says that is because there has been numerous companies that have delisted off the capital market. About 36 companies, it says, has been delisted off the capital market. Some of those 36, out of the 36 companies, 25 were actually forced to delist due to non-compliance by the SEC and the Nigerian Security and Exchange Commission.
Yeah.
And 8 voluntary delisted, Another 3 were mergers. Of course, we know some of those companies that formed mergers in the banking sector of recent. So,
Access and Diamond.
Access and Diamond, exactly. And so, because of that, the capital market has dropped. And this year, we're seeing a 16% depreciation of the capital market. And of course, it's not far-fetched to understand that if the economy isn't doing well, then of course businesses that are quoted on the stock market would invariably not be doing well as well. And at the same time, this would reflect on the profit that the companies are making, and as such, there wouldn't be so much interest in the capital market. That is simply what the market is saying.
Thank you very much for your analysis on that, Balaho. Let's move to you, Devo, for this story from Premium Times. Bill to redefine rape passes second reading in Nigeria's Senate. That's the bill to amend the Criminal Code Act, laws of the Federation of Nigeria 2004, sponsored by Oluremi Tinubu, representing APC in Lagos. The bill was first read in the upper chamber on the 24th of September. Essentially, the reason why they're amending this bill, seeking to amend the bill, is that Ms. Tinubu found that definition of rape was lopsided. It only covered for women and assumed that rape can be a crime committed only against women, and then excluding the men as being victims in this. That also speaking about kidnapping and how their sentences should be extended beyond what it is already. The thoughts?
Yes, basically they were redefining what the law says about rape, and initially was speaking that rape is seen as when a man has carnal knowledge of a woman against her will without her consent or gotten by coercion. Now, what she was saying that this is grievous against men, and that men also require consent, and within what they know of today's times, that even men have been coerced into sexual acts as well as being raped as well. So the law doesn't cover them. So this amendment, if it takes place, has passed second reading. They also did speak on kidnapping, that they were prescribing life sentence for anyone caught kidnapping and where it's established. The aspect which I think still may have some contention is the age of consent, whereby there's unlawful carnal knowledge of people who were underage. And I think this, if you remember, during the time of Yerima, there was a humongous debate over the age of consent. Where does the age of consent lie? I think as of then it stopped at 18, but there are plenty cases. There are many rife cases of people based on cultural and religious factors who've been carrying this out. And where do you? Because now, if the underage is coerced, is it considered rape? Or is it considered consent? So I think in this passing, we'll wait to see how the House goes through this. I'm happy that it's being pushed by a woman, and I'm also happy that it's passed the second reading, but it needs to be given very speedy hearing because of how many cases that are being lost on technicalities. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Devo. Let's run through the messages we have before us.
All right, so we have this one by BC who sent a message in from Oshodi, who says, for an official who is totally taken care of by the state while in office, the pension paid to governors is way too high and unnecessary.
Especially gets very ridiculous when you hear of somebody who earns 10 million naira a month. Ike from Ike Osuji says now today, once you pay, inmates invite their wives to mates. One was having kids all through his stay at the You can choose not to be eating prison meals. Interesting. Inka says, imagine Akpabio claiming they're investigating hospitals that were not built. The world-class hospital he claimed to build as a governor, when last did he visit there? Inside life, he said.
No, really inside life.
Chuku says, nothing would come out of the Turkey Boko Haram report if the government or its officials are in partnership as the results or reports are suggested.
All right, we have this one here, which says, while Zamfara might be playing politics by repealing the law, in the end, they have saved the state massively from incurring further debt that their revenue can't afford. Let's wait and see which states will follow.
Yodiji says, governors are not civil servants. How do you work for 8 years and start receiving pension after? This does not happen anywhere in the world. It only happens when people do not hold political office holders accountable.
This is where we come to the end of Freshly Pressed this morning. Thank you very much, Devo. Would you like to plug out real quick?
Yeah.
At Devo Career.
Thank you.
Bala is at Mr. G Quest on Twitter.
Okay, so guys, make sure you stick around. Locker Room comes up real soon.
That's a grapevine language.